Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Northeastern President Joseph Aoun.
Let me start by congratulating the organizers. They are doing a terrific job. They are empowering all of us to make it happen. And when I looked at the program, I was very heartened by the fact that we have also young alumni, we have parents, and we have alumni coming back and working with you. Now, I want to share something with you. On a global level, what you are doing cannot be done in many countries. And I think that we have to keep that in mind. There are countries with aging populations. I visited some of them. The number of people is going down, but the women are not working. And they need people to work, to be leaders. And you know what the solution is, what they think the solution is? They think that robots are going to fulfill the needs that this society has. It's a true example. Doesn't work. If half of the population cannot be in leadership positions and in work positions, that's a problem. That's one example. I picked this example from Asia. In Africa, in the Middle East, all over the world, we have those problems. We're not free from these problems here. So you are starting a tradition. And I hope that next year we can find a way, you can find a way of connecting the alumni chapters all over the world to work with you. They will be ready to do it, they'll be happy to do it, and they'll benefit from that in the same way that you'll benefit from that. So I want to thank you one more time. We have here many representatives from our Alumni Association. They can connect you. We have many of our alumni who went back to their countries. Some are changing the world. They started real change. I think you can benefit tremendously from their experience, and they can benefit from what you have been doing and what other alumni are doing. So I'm very proud of you. I'm very impressed. And I was looking at women's leadership and women who empower. Now, you know that we have a group here that started something called Women Who Inspire. Now, there is a difference. You can inspire somebody. That's a step. But the ultimate step is to empower her. And that's what you're doing. You're not only inspiring, you're empowering. And thank you for that. Did you bring macaroons? I came and I expected to have some, and you didn't give me any? Oh my God, thank you all. Thank you.
I'm just going to go down the line, first of all, so that we can get a sense for the names and faces and organizations. So the first one we have is Elizabeth, and Elizabeth Barno, right, is with Greentown Labs, and she is a 2013 alumna. And next to Elizabeth, we have, let me see, is this Katie Ringer? And she's from the DeMoore McKim School of Business. And followed by Kanisha Goldson, who graduated in Arts, Media, and Design. And then we have Alyssa Cattle from 2 degrees from mechanical engineering and engineering management. And our last one is Jessica Weaver, our 1 PhD, who is freshly minted last year in microbiology. So we have a diverse group of disciplines represented here and a diverse range of professions that they have chosen for their initial foray into a full-time work world. So I'd like to start with just have each one of you, and we'll go down the line initially, to, spend maybe 2 minutes saying what you're currently doing today to give us some current context. Would you start off for us,
Absolutely.
please?
Can everyone hear me? Oh, excellent. Hi, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Barno, and I graduated from Northeastern in 2013. I was a little bit of a rebel and made my own mixture of a major, which I was calling environmental pre-law. I always, ever since I was a child, was very interested in sustainability and environmentalism. When I came here at Northeastern, that was strengthened, and I really found that the energy industry was where I wanted to focus my sustainability efforts to make the most impact that I could, and I really wanted to do that through law. So I did a few co-ops in the field, and right after leaving Northeastern, I helped to kickstart an organization called Greentown Labs, where I still am today. I've been at Greentown for 3 years and done a wide range of things. But for those of you who don't know, Greentown Labs is an incubator space for clean technology-focused startup companies. So we offer space, resources, mentorship, help to very early stage companies that are making technological breakthroughs for the energy industry. And right now, my current position as community manager is to work with our 50 startup companies on connecting them directly with the resources that they need and the people that they need to accelerate their businesses.
Thank you very much. Let's now hear from Katie Ringer, who's working at MFS
Yes.
Investments.
So I graduated in 2011, and I was lucky enough to start my first co-op at MFS and have actually been working there ever since. It was a great opportunity. I started working in sales analysis there, and MFS actually has anywhere from 40 to 60 co-ops at one time, so it's a company that really appreciates that program. So once I got there, there was even another girl in the group who was also working as a co-op who was working part-time. So day one, it felt like I had the opportunity to not only take that 6 months, but maybe even go more and stay at MFS, and that's what I ended up doing. I worked in sales analysis for 3 years, and MFS is an asset management firm. We have about 70 different mutual funds. We have offices around the world. After sales analysis, I moved over to the marketing group, and it was a great opportunity. A role opened up, and because of some of my work in the other role, I moved over to marketing, which I never actually thought I would do, but I've been really enjoying it. It's anywhere from email communications to social media to strategy to analyzing the marketing campaigns, and it's been a great opportunity to work there. And I also recently, actually about a year ago, also started working with the Northeastern Alumni Group. So I've worked with young alumni events, and over the past year, we've hosted a few different fitness type events. We hosted a spin class and a bar class, trying to get the different young alumni around the Boston area involved with the school again.
Thank you very much, Katie. Kanisha, you are a serial entrepreneur. You have 2 things to tell us about that you're currently doing.
So when I first came to Northeastern, I really admire you guys because you know what you wanted to do. You stuck to it. You got the appropriate co-ops. I thought I knew what I wanted to do, so I started off as a criminal justice major. And fortunately, after my first co-op experience, I learned that that wasn't for me. While I was on co-op, I signed up to study abroad at the American University of Paris in France. And it was my experience in Paris that gave me the idea to start Cameo Macaron, which is my French macaron food truck. I was obsessed with macarons. I was spending my rent money on them. My mother's sending me money, like, take care of your rent. And I'm like, okay, walking down the Champs-Élysées to go to La Durée and buy cookies. So the truck that was my first kind of entrepreneurial experience. On the side, I've always done a little bit of freelance consulting work. And after opening the food truck, it kind of naturally progressed to working with restaurants. So I've kind of had my hands in a business called Bread Gourmet. My best friend opened a gourmet burger restaurant, and he knew nothing about the food industry. So I was going out to lunch with my mother one day, and I ran into him, and he just got the keys to the restaurant, and he literally looked at me and said, "Help." So everything from just kind of all the functions in the kitchen and hiring people and what to call the burgers, and I really just kind of got in there with him and helped him with a lot of the marketing and just building the brand. And there's just so many things that you don't realize that you can do because you usually don't give yourself a lot of credit most of the time. And I learned so many things from being an entrepreneur and starting Cameo Macaron and operating it by myself from the ground up. So right now I do a lot of mentoring. Anyone that wants to open a food truck, a lot of people come to me and kind of get the inside info on that. So I like to think of myself as a mentor and entrepreneur.
Thank you. Alyssa, please.
That is so cool. This is the 180-degree version of that. So I'm Alyssa. I work for EMC. If you're not familiar, we're one of the largest sellers of hardware and software to support data storage, headquartered here in Massachusetts, but also in 82 countries around the world, around 70,000 employees and about $26 billion in revenue. So a pretty big company if you haven't heard of us. I joined, was recruited to EMC directly out of my undergrad at Northeastern after 3 great co-ops at other companies and couldn't say no. Joined as a mechanical engineer in our supply chain organization. And now I work in corporate sustainability for EMC. And what's, I guess, interesting counterpoint to Elizabeth is except for growing up in Maine where you take nature for granted, didn't necessarily align all of my passions with kind of environmental or social justice growing up. But now I see just this incredible opportunity for business to provide that value and business's responsibility, and how doing well by people and by the earth shouldn't have to come at the expense of business and vice versa. So I've gotten to take a rather circuitous path through EMC. This is my 4th job appointment officially within EMC. But I'm happy to answer corporate sustainability questions that you might have and how sustainability relates to companies that aren't just energy companies.
Thank you, Alyssa. And now, finally, Jessica, please.
Yes, so I joined Northeastern knowing that I really enjoyed science. I had broad interest, and I sort of picked a lab based on who had space and the relationship with my mentor more so than a particular area of research. And I didn't really know what I could do with a PhD after I had a PhD. So that was one of the reasons I decided to start Graduate Women in Science and Engineering at Northeastern. Was there wasn't, first of all, a group for women in STEM at the graduate level. There were undergraduate groups that we did work with, but there wasn't a graduate. So that was one of the goals of GWISE, was to help women realize what sort of career opportunities there were after a graduate degree, specifically in the STEM fields. We also had outreach, which I think is very important, we've talked about, and the president mentioned, is that in other countries we sort of take advantage of our opportunities here. And one of the things GWISE really liked to do was volunteer with the Science Club for Girls and sort of make sure that interest in STEM is maintained and fostered from middle school onward and into undergraduate, into graduate, the whole way. And we co-hosted events with the Women Who Inspire. I met a lot of really great women who took very strange career paths. You never know what opportunity is going to come around the corner, and you should take it. So I got a degree in plant molecular biology. And I realized I did not want to stay in the academic path. Even though I'm in an academic lab now, there are only 2 plant biotech companies in the Boston area. So there were sort of small opportunities for me to transition directly to industry. So I decided to accept a position where I could learn about biomedical research. So now I'm in a lab that does immunology and oncology research, and I am empowering my boss. If I had to pick what my job is, I'm about 70% research, 30% lab management support. I manage our mouse research, our human. I support all of the people in our lab, and I run some of my own projects. So I really do enjoy doing lots of different things. So Northeastern definitely led me to this position.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, all of you. A number of you mentioned your co-ops. What did you learn from your co-ops that you could share with our audience here? The good, the bad, the real stuff. Who'd like to start off? Great.
So I learned, as well as a few of my other co-panelists, what I didn't want to do from co-op. And I think looking back at my co-op experiences and those of my friends, that is just as valuable as learning exactly what you do want to do. I was a liberal arts major and was ready to go straight into law school ever since I was, thinking about school and my career. But doing co-ops, I did a co-op in government and I did a co-op in corporate law. And the pace and the environment and the people, things that you don't necessarily think about for a career when you're still studying, really, really weren't for me. So my last semester, I did another internship in entrepreneurship and just found that was much more of my workplace fit. So that's my takeaway from co-ops overall. And it was just a really great experience, even doing things that I didn't end up wanting to do when I graduated. I met an incredible array of people in different fields, some of whom I still keep in touch with today, who still support what I'm doing in my business today.
So that sounds like a good networking lesson as well. How about you, Katie? Would you tell us about your co-op experiences?
I would say one of the things that shocked me when I got to MFS, it has about 1,200 employees, and I was really surprised by how behind in technology a lot of the bigger companies are. So one of the things I learned is just how slow it is, how long it takes to implement new technologies, and it kind of makes you, as a younger person who's more familiar with it, I had the advantage of when we had something new, I would jump on it and I would be the first person to kind of learn that, and people started to depend on me for that. So I actually attribute a lot of my success to my first co-op to really just learning Excel. And I taught myself it from just honestly Googling it, but you'd be surprised. People get so intimidated by it, especially employers who have been there for so long and didn't use it early on. Just being able to kind of go ahead on your own, take that first step to kind of find something that maybe other people are worried about or don't have as much comfort with, and stepping up and doing it yourself can really make you stand out. And even still today, it's been 8 years, people still come to me with Excel questions. So it's like the simplest thing, but it's great. It's an advantage you have as a younger person coming into a company like that.
Sharing your expertise. Great. Thank you. Kanisha.
Well, you guys already know that my first co-op taught me that I was just on the wrong path. But I think the most important experience that I had as a student at Northeastern was the summer of my freshman year, when I interned at a small law firm in the downtown Boston. And from that experience, I learned that there's so much power in being who you are. And it sounds really silly, but kind of just going out there and having confidence in yourself. I worked at this law firm, and for a very long time, they thought I was in law school. So, and I didn't know this until months down the line, but they thought I was a law student, and I was literally, it was summer of my freshman year, like as fresh as you could be in your undergraduate experience. And they would tell me to do all of these things, and I would think, oh my goodness, like this is a lot for an unpaid internship. But I would literally Google things. Google was my best friend. I would Google things and watch YouTube videos in my office and just figure it out. And there was just so much power in being able to say, I think that these people are crazy. This stuff is way over my head, but I got it done anyway, and I figured it out. And that's been a lesson that I've taken with me in every experience as a student after graduating, especially with owning my food truck, is that you can doubt yourself so much that you don't get things done. And so sometimes people are going to throw crazy things your way, but if you just figure it out and truck through it, it makes so much of a difference. And that really kind of built me into the person that I am today.
Alyssa.
So I had 3 great co-op experiences, 2 at one company and then a third. It's engineering, so we won't go into the detail, but except to say that I think that the valuable thing about co-op at Northeastern, and it's been my personal experience, but it's also been my experience with co-op, other co-op students that I've worked with, is that going through the process of co-op gives you this understanding that you need to do more than what the job says you need to do. And pretty much all of my personal success I can attribute to the fact that I took side projects. I did extension things beyond what was in my job title. I went out and met new people and went kind of above and beyond the call of whatever the job was. And co-op teaches you to do that, because I think you go into a co-op and usually the scope is small and you're there for 6 months and the expectation is that you will do this pretty generic piece of work. And yet what we see most Northeastern co-ops doing is going way above and beyond that, right? They're reaching out and they're making a huge contribution. And if you apply that same principle to your full-time work, then that's when you get tapped on the shoulder for the next job. That's when you make the network that's, oh, I'm not just sitting around waiting to get promoted in my position. I now have all of these other pathways available to me.
Thank you. Jessica.
So I actually did not do a co-op. I attended the University of Virginia, the college at Wise, and I'm a little envious of the co-op program because it does sort of give you that. I did have a great undergraduate education, not at all I'm saying that I didn't, but the co-op program does give you the opportunity to test the waters to see, coming out of high school, how do you know really what sort of job, what sort of career you want to do? And it gives you the opportunity to test the water without commitment and without having to alter your degree path after you already have a degree. And so the one thing I will say is sort of mirroring what was just mentioned is just take advantage of opportunities that you have wherever you are. You never know who you're going to meet or what thing you're going to learn that can really boost your career or make you realize that there's a career that you didn't even know that you wanted.
Well, we all need a little help from our friends from time to time, and that often involves mentors, people who have guided us. What can you say about people who have shaped your directions and decisions? Yes, please.
So as I mentioned before, the company I work at has a lot of co-ops at one time. So that means there's also a lot of alumni working at MFS. So I actually had another alumni that really helped me out when I got there. He had been working there for probably, I think, 5 or 6 years before, and he had really risen up pretty high for being there only a short period of time, and he was great. What I really liked is he was very blunt and honest with me. He gave me great tips on like working hard, because when you're younger, like staying late, it's much easier then to do it when I'm single with no kids. So being able to do that early on and like show my commitment was really great. So I really think that what made me stand out was like showing my work ethic and making sure that I was at a company that appreciated that too. And having him as a mentor was really great because he helped shape a lot of my earlier career, and just having someone who went through a very similar experience was very helpful too. But I've recently had other mentors too at work, and what I love about MFS is that they help you with that. So there's different programs. So something like that where if you have the opportunity through your company, try and take advantage, because the more you can get help from other people, especially early on, the better you'll be.
But this was not a formal mentoring
Yeah, the
program.
first one was just kind of, I think just because of our Northeastern bond, we earlier on just kind of chatted a lot. I would go to him for advice earlier on, and then we ended up, some of our job overlapped, so it was great once we worked together because I was really able to get a lot of information from him.
So using the Northeastern connection was a good entree.
Yes.
Others, mentors.
I've had several mentors throughout my experience at Northeastern. One of my biggest mentors was actually a sorority sister. I was a member, or am a member, of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, incorporated here at Northeastern, the Iota Gamma chapter. And we had a very, very small chapter here on campus. So when I became a member, there were only 6 people in the chapter. 6 people in the entire chapter. So I was literally like programming chair, communications chair, grammatist, Tamiokas. It's like present, present, present. So, and the oldest person in the chapter at that time, Kelly Crosby, she was doing her capstone for engineering, and she had so much going on, but she literally would get all of these things done. We were planning Step Fest. That was a huge event that we host each year. And she just knew everything, had all of these contacts, and literally would not miss a beat. Like if Kelly was responsible for something, every single thing was done. You didn't have to worry about it. And I just learned so much from her because just kind of thinking about asking the right questions and knowing who to speak to. And that's helped me obviously a lot with my business, just making sure that you ask the right questions and you're talking to the right people and you're doing your research. Research, she would always say, utilize your resources, has saved me so much money as an entrepreneur. The first person that I talked to when I first wanted to outfit my food truck told me that it would cost $65,000. And I bought a $13,000 truck. So there was no way I was going to put $65,000 of stuff in a $13,000 truck. And I utilized my resources, and I went out and I met with people, and I read the regulations and got all the information that I needed to know in order to build the truck. And I was able to do it for $6,800. So saved me obviously tons of money. And I just owe it all to Kelly Crosby because she never misses a beat.
I'll just add, are there any folks in the room for whom mentorship feels like this yucky over? So my feeling as an undergrad was like, I don't want to do mentorship because it means I have to go meet somebody that I don't know and be part of this exchange. And I see a few head nods because sometimes it feels like this overdone thing, like networking. Like I must go meet all of these people. That's not, while formal mentorships do work very well in certain scenarios, that's not the only way, and you should keep your informal mentors just as close. And if it doesn't feel right for you to think of them as a mentor, think of them as a friend, as a confidant, as somebody that's going to help you up the ladder. Use the terminology that works for you. I work with a lot of people who, if you told me to write down a list in confidence, who do I think my mentors are, I can tell you exactly who influences my decisions, who I can go to for advice that I need. Have I ever approached one of them and said, will you please mentor me? No. Should I? Maybe? Possibly. Yes, there might be added value in there. That relationship might change, but I really value the way the relationships work now, and that's what works for me. So mentorship is a two-way street where both of you have to feel comfortable and you're getting something out of it. So do what works for you, I guess. That's my feeling on it.
Jessica.
Yeah, so I actually remember a really good piece of advice at one of the Women Who Inspire panel series was that you should always be a mentor and have a mentor. So you should always be helping people that are below you that you can give advice to and help them transition into a new position, learn new skills, while also seeking that out in other people. And it really does help to think of it that way, that you not only are accepting advice and help from someone, but you should also be giving it.
Can you give an example?
Yeah, so in my sort of new position, I entered into a plant research, and my PhD is much slower. Plants grow much slower, and the technology... The technology for, yeah. So the technology is also not quite as advanced as some. Now I'm in immunology biomedical research, which is very fast-paced. The knowledge we have on human and mouse models is much farther along than the non-model plant I worked in. So the change of pace in the research was a little daunting, and my mentor and one of the postdocs in the lab have been very helpful in sort of helping me break it down and plan my projects and help with the project management with a completely different type of organism. So that has helped. And then now we have new people entering into the lab. Our lab is expanding quickly, and I do the same thing for them. I help them acclimate to the lab culture. Every job has its own culture, and what are the do's and don'ts of don't use my pipetters, or everybody has their own do's and don'ts. So I think those sorts of things and lab culture can be very invaluable when you're transitioning to a new position.
Elizabeth, you wanted to add about
Yes.
mentors.
Absolutely. I am a big fan of peer mentors, and I think being in entrepreneurship, every entrepreneur that you meet and you work around becomes a mentor in one way or another, especially working in a co-working space where I work. And I'd also like to give a shout out to my male mentors who, you're like, what are you talking about male mentors? But being a woman in tech, and in all fields, I think we have a certain way that we act sometimes. And it wasn't until I started talking to my male peers, and they were like, why aren't you talking about how awesome you are? Like, why isn't this cover letter just like killing it? Or, like, why don't you talk about all of these awards you've gotten? Why aren't you introducing yourself this way? And I was like, I don't know. I'm just being humble or being, modest. I don't know. But talking with them has really helped me to kind of come out of my shell a little bit when talking about myself, writing things about myself. And that's kickstarted my own personal development. So thanks to all of you guys.
The work culture is crucial in making you even want to reach out to your peers and offer help. Or those who are just coming into the organization. Can you talk about your organizational cultures and what you like about them and what you might like to change?
I can kick it off again. My work culture is very, very, very unique. I am part of a very small team, and I am working around and with people who are not in my own company every day, and that's my job. And I really enjoy everything about it, and it was actually probably my work culture combined with my kind of mission statement that changed the whole trajectory of my career. I started working at an incubator as a client and became part of the staff because I loved being in this building and around the community so much. And even on my team, working with only 3 or 4 other people is really empowering, especially in your first job and being young. Even if it's even just the team you're on that's small, it's very personally important to me that what I'm doing, I see happen. And I find a lot of inspiration in seeing my projects and my initiatives changing the course of my business. And that's something that I only learned maybe this past year, reflecting on all of my experiences. But it's given me a lot of personal satisfaction.
Great. So at my company, I would say culture is one of the things very, very early on made me fall in love with working at MFS. It's a company where even being there 8 years, I'm still very new. Most people spend their careers there. People joke about MFS standing for my final stop. It's and it's true. People, even our CEO started as an intern. So it's a great place where, especially in the finance world, it's scary to get out there and kind of what you see in all the movies, but MFS was very different, and that's what I fell in love about it. The management really is, they have that open door policy. Everyone knows everyone else's name. It's so easy to go and talk to someone that's on just like the senior level, and that's what made me really enjoy working there, because that really filters down to everyone else in the company. When your like management team is that passionate, it's just contagious. When we have company meetings, it's like a pep rally. And I started in 2008, so seeing a finance company go through what happened then, within 2 months, they had to lay off like 5% of the company. It was crazy to see, but to see how everyone reacted and how everyone stayed together and how passionate the CEO was on stage and how everyone just wanted to continue to do good work and to benefit the client and do as much as we could to keep the company going forward was great. So being able to have people around you that are loyal to the company, people that want to be there, makes a huge difference. I mean, you're spending 40 hours a week with people. You want to be able to chat with them and have like some type of personal relationship and want to wake up in the morning and go to work. And that's why I've stayed at MFS since I think I started when I was 19 and I haven't left. So once you find that fit, it's really great if you can stay there and find a career path and really keep working hard so that you can continue your career there.
Well, for me, as an entrepreneur, I have a very small business setup. So it's me and like 3 other people. But it was always really hard for me to establish that sense of being a boss. The girls that work for me are all very young. They're all Northeastern students. And so I always wanted to be like the cool friend, like let's listen to Beyonce and, hang out after this. And that obviously was just the wrong way to go about things, because you have to establish the sense of mutual respect. And in order to be a boss, you have to be respected, not feared, but respected. And so I just made it so that the girls knew that I held myself to the same standards that I held them to. So I wouldn't be late to open the truck, or, I wouldn't randomly close on them, or I just made sure that they were comfortable and that they felt like I respected them as much as I expected to receive that. And that literally changed the course of everything. I've never had anyone call out, I've never had a sick day or anything like that. And I do learn a lot from the girls. I would like to think that they learn a lot from me. But I think that respect, especially in a small business setting, is very, very important. It's the same with my friend at his restaurant. He's also very young. He's 28 years old. And he has about 20 people that are working under him. And just by nature, he's a really, really easygoing person. But he's run into situations where when you're the cool boss, it's just like, oh, I'll just get this one by him. And you really kind of have to put your foot down and say, hey, guys, I know that we're having a good time here, but, we have to get work done. And once you establish that, everything just kind of smooth sailing.
So my position is also pretty small now. I have my PI, and she is an MD, PhD, attending physician. She has a week, a month of clinic duty where she's not in the lab, and then she also runs our research lab. And right now there's 4 of us, and we have a new scientist starting, so 5 total researchers. I'm sort of lab manager / researcher, so I'm responsible for making sure everybody has the things they need, for making sure everything's in working order. And this past week, one of our incubators broke, one of our refrigerators stopped working, and so I sort of deal with these things. And it's really nice because the rest of my coworkers help, to pick up the slack, and everybody's really willing to help each other. So it feels like a sort of a community working towards the goal of figuring out how cancer and T cells interact with each other and the microenvironment of the tumor. There's as deep as the science I'll get. But as my boss is an MD, PhD, and she has a lot of responsibilities, and she's sort of she has an air that she expects that. She is very nice and easygoing, but I'm not sure what that quality is where someone can just motivate you to work just as hard as maybe it's because she works so hard, you see how hard she works, and you want to work just as hard as her. But I really do enjoy the culture in my new position. And I've only been there since July because I just graduated in 2015, but it's been an awesome experience so far.
So I guess to close it out, having amazing work culture is probably the most important thing, right? And I really enjoy the culture at EMC. While we're in the process of being bought, the showing of our culture is paramount and so important to our employees. So we're really trying to capitalize on that. But I will speak kind of in a slightly different way about how being a group of 5 people in a global company of 70,000 with responsibility to tell EMC's, basically all of EMC's non-financial story, we have to do a lot of leading through influence and influence without authority. So we're not going to meet these 40% emission reduction goals and these 50% renewable energy goals by any action that I can do. So what I need to do and what the culture that I need to propagate is one of influence and respect. And so what we spend a lot of time doing is finding those peers in the business units all over the world, and helping to understand how we can help them to meet their objectives while they help us to meet ours. And that's something that I think as women we have a unique ability to do. Perhaps how we're raised, I'm not sure, and I hate to generalize, but we're people that grew up managing many priorities. We're people that still do in our homes, in our lives, in our families. And so we have a very unique ability, I think, and one that puts us above others in how to approach people to get things done in a very bilateral or peer kind of way. So our group is 4 women out of 5. It's really astounding in a large tech company like ours. The rest of the statistics are not quite so great, but we're working on that too. So come to EMC.
Great. Anyone else? We've kind of all, you've all spoken on that one. Well, have there been, it's great to be bold, and you all exhibit tremendous energy, you work hard. Tell us how you work smart.
Well, again, I think I already touched on this, but I never take the first answer, and I also never take no as a real answer. I mean, sometimes no, like you actually cannot do this, like it can't physically happen. But again, I saved tons of money by not taking the first opinion. And I just think that it's really important in business. It empowers you. You learn very valuable lessons from that. But it's just also important to just never go about that in life. I mean, you can learn so many things. There's so many different opportunities that are available to you if you just kind of, shop around. So I'm a huge fan of the Excel spreadsheet, just like the never-ending Excel spreadsheet of life, where whenever I see anything or I think of any new ideas for my business, I kind of put that in there. And in order to build that idea or to add this new concept to my business, I shop around and I look at what's available to me, if those are tools, if they're new employees. And I kind of put all that information in there, and then I analyze it and figure out, what's kind of the best next move for me. But you always kind of have to shop around and always figure things out, especially when you're working on your own. It's really easy to jump at the first answer or what seems like the first solution, but sometimes you learn the hard way that that's not the best way to do things. So I'd say that's how I work smart.
I will share a tip or tool I use if it's beneficial to you. The way we scope our work in my group is we use a do, lead, influence model. So we look at all the activities that we have to do, and we categorize them by what can we do. You get on the computer, you do it, right? Lead, where you need to lead a team of others to implement that work. Maybe you can't do it yourself, but you need to take the lead on that. Influence, like I talked about earlier, a lot of our work falls into the influence bucket. We don't spend time doing things we can't do because we need to influence folks first. And then we have a pile we've named it many things, but it's the equivalent of let it be, right? And then take your work and take your sheet or your Excel sheet or your Post-it notes or the ideas in your head, maybe in the shower, and say, okay, what are the do's? What are the leads? What are the influences? And I think what's important is you still have to do all those types of things. But maybe you're not going to spend 90% of time doing just do things. Maybe that's not a good career move for you. But certainly if you do all influence things and you never get anything done, that's clearly not a good move either. So, but bucketizing your work like that, to me, helps me really understand what actions I need to take to get things done, and therefore I'm not spinning and missing opportunities or spending time doing things that aren't really going to be as beneficial as they could be.
And this is a program at EMC. People are...
No, this is all 5 of us dreamed it up, and we do it. But you can take it and use it.
All right, the secret weapon. Who else would like to talk? Yes.
I can add. So I would say learn to be helpful, but also learn when you learn how to say no and that it's okay to say no. Because a lot of times, especially early on, you want to always be raising your hand, but you don't have unlimited capacity. So being able to confidently say that and even just like strategically say that so you're not looking like you're turning down work, it's really tough to do, but it's something to definitely work towards, especially earlier on. And then I would also say to work smart, you really need to find a balance between work and then work life outside of work. That was something earlier on that I was struggling with. I would put in so many hours and I started to drive myself crazy and felt like I was burning out, but you have to be okay with leaving right at 5 some days and not feel guilty about it and find stuff outside of work that you enjoy doing. So I love to go to cooking classes and go to yoga, and it honestly really helps, and you'll see it actually reflect in your work as well once you have that balance, because it's really easy to burn out earlier on, especially nowadays when you're constantly connected. I have my work email on my phone, my iPad, and my laptop if I needed to, and that's a little scary, but it's good to disconnect every once in a while.
I would echo what everyone has said so far. One thing that I learned, especially for a small business, and really any business, is that time is money. And my time spent doing something is costing this company money. So choose what you're doing smart, especially on a small team when everybody's doing everything for the business. I was doing the accounting for a long time, and I had no training in accounting, and I was spending hours poring over tutorials and talking to people and like forcing my way through doing the books for a business when somebody with some training and probably not a ton of money could have done it much faster. So that's the biggest work smart thing that I learned. And technology, I see in a lot of the larger companies we work with, and even just staying on top of new tools and new programs. And there's a ton of thing to automate workflow and help. It's incredible. Even I feel, as a younger person, I like to think that I'm on top of all the new tech and trendy stuff. But I'm learning about new things every day that I can't wait to use.
Jessica?
Yeah, so basically all of those pieces of advice, they're pretty broad statements that can be applied to most jobs. And I think it is important to sort of think about how these could fit into your role. I am in an academic research lab, so we survive on grants from the government for research, and I'm responsible for purchasing and managing our budget, so spreadsheets, love them too. But that is one thing I do is shop around. I always ask reps for discounts and a little bit all the time. I don't ever buy something straight out before I find out if I can get a discount on it, unless we need it tomorrow. And also don't be afraid to ask for help. I didn't really learn a lot about data analysis before this position, and now I do a lot of flow cytometry, and I had no idea what I was doing, and I tried to watch YouTube videos on the FlowJo data analysis, and I found out it was just best to ask the people who already knew how to do it and not waste my time trying to figure out what I was doing on my own when I didn't have any sort of basis for what I was doing. So ask for help if you need it.
Great. As a final question before we go and open the floor to your questions, I'd like to address the topic of sustainability. We have people who are involved in this business, and I would think that it's an issue that is of crucial importance to every one of us. You may have seen in the Boston Globe yesterday that the predictions are even more dire than scientists had thought earlier, and Boston is in a very vulnerable position geographically with regard to climate change. What can people do in the workplace to make strides, real strides with sustainability efforts? Alyssa, would you start us off, please?
So every person can and needs to do something. That's the call to action, I guess. You were all, even being maybe 12 years younger, 10 years younger than You were born into a different time, and I think, and I see here on Northeastern and the things that people just coming out of college are doing, you already understand, are compelled to take action, which is amazing. If you come to a company, there are resources and people like me looking for people like you. And the number one thing we tell people is you do not need a degree in sustainability to do meaningful work in sustainability. And in fact, we prefer you go into a core business function. So please become an engineer and design a more energy efficient product. Become a member of our finance team and look for financial mechanisms to incentivize investments in clean tech. Join our HR program and tell us how to get engaged employees and how to keep engaged employees and how to leverage the new talent and all the folks that are coming in. So we're looking for folks in core business functions with this understanding of sustainability. And then you reach out to the corporate website. I think I think 70 something percent of the S&P now is putting out sustainability programs. So any large company is going to have an Office of Sustainability email address. Just email them and say, this is what I do, how can I help? And that is my job, is to find a way to get you involved, to get you engaged, to empower you to succeed in your organization. And we leverage everybody that comes to us. I've had web developers that I use. We're doing a project on using big data around climate change and bird migration, and we used all 100% volunteer EMC employee time to do that, and that required data analysis, it required architecture, so we used our engineers, our developers, we put out a public website, so we needed marketing, comms, PR. We pretty much utilized every single aspect of the business, and we found sustainability advocates in every single place we looked, and we involved those people on the team. So there is a place for you, and I hope that you find those places and don't just use the keyword, sustainability star and look for that job. Instead, find the role and apply sustainability to that role. That was my soapbox. Did you see how I got up on it?
Elizabeth, perhaps you're the next one to speak on this topic.
Sure. Absolutely true. So I work with companies that are coming up with more sustainable technologies that they hope will overtake some existing inefficient technology a lot of times. And what they need to get their technology onto a site, into a pilot program out in front of people are champions, internal champions, wherever they're targeting, to care and make noise and talk about why that's important to them. So even if you are on the finance team, if you're on the marketing team, if you're cleaning the facilities, if sustainability is something that's important to you, just tell your higher up. Go talk to HR, go talk to your sustainability department if you have one, talk to your facilities department. You make more of an impact than maybe you think. And that's how technologies get into big companies, into government, in front of people that can accelerate them. It's because of people on site that care and talk about it and don't just ignore it.
Sorry, you caught me on my thing. No, just to add to Elizabeth's point, if you're scared to talk to your boss about how you can contribute and you feel like that might be overstepping your boundaries, we've had numerous success stories where employees have asked their managers if they could allocate 10% of their time to doing this sustainability-related effort, and if they've gone on and moved from that role, when a new person's hired into that role, the manager now comes to us and says, I want to get my new person involved in sustainability because they are more engaged, they're more understanding of the way that the business works. So don't be afraid to talk to your manager because there's benefits in it for them. That engagement of their employee is super powerful resource for them.
Can I jump on again too?
Yeah.
What I'm finding and what I found over the last 3 years that somewhat surprised me is that sustainable technologies are often also more economical technologies. So, going to your boss, it doesn't mean that you're asking for more money, for the company to spend more money on something to be green. It's probably going to save the company money, as well as empowering employees. And those economics and those numbers are pretty readily available from companies. I mean, sustainable companies aren't successful just because they're green. It's because people want to fund them because they're going to make money. So it's a no-brainer. I'll leave that.
Jessica?
Yeah, so I guess I use my purchasing power. I buy the supplies for my lab, so it's something that I keep in mind, and I know which suppliers. I'm also sort of our safety manager, our lab safety officer, and radiation safety officer, so sort of finding protocols or ways to do things that reduce our waste. I guess the Boston logo, if you see something, say something. If you see something that you think might be done a better way that reduces waste, say something, bring it up. Maybe it's not feasible, but a lot of times, like they've mentioned, that it is economical. Maybe you save plastics, maybe you save chemicals, it saves money and helps the environment. So I think if it could be shot down, but in most cases, if you are thinking about how things work in your position and what you're using and what waste you're creating, and you think of a better way to do it, often it does save money. And so I think that's a sort of a good motto to live by for sustainability in whatever position you might end up in.
Anisha?
A quick note on that, and about sustainability usually being the more economical option. When we built out our food truck, we decided to go with battery powered as opposed to getting a huge, loud, noisy generator. So not only did we not have to buy the generator, but then we also didn't have to get the generator custom fitted for the truck. And we have batteries that are charged when we drive the truck around. So it's quiet and it's cute and it saves a ton of money. Sustainability is cute, guys. It's what
You're making it cute. And did you have anything to add, Katie, at MFS?
Yeah, at MFS, what's great is at MFS, they're definitely putting a lot of resources into this topic, and it's anywhere from just how we operate day to day, also just having things like webinars for employees on how they can integrate it into their at-home life as well. And really, it's a big part of our investing philosophy too, looking for companies that are putting research into that can have long-term plans to be sustainable. So it's definitely something that you'll hear more about, and it's an easier topic to bring up now. A lot of times, like a lot of stuff as we're moving forward, it's something that you want to keep in mind, and it's something that it's not going to happen overnight, but just to keep working towards it, finding the small ways that you can make a difference in your day-to-day job.
Thank you all very much. Let's open up the floor now to your questions.
I am a Northeastern alum from 2009 journalism. I work in public education as a director of talent for a nonprofit here in Boston. And one of the things that I'm learning throughout my career is that one of the key levers of pushing success is also great management. So I would love to hear from your personal experience, either managing people formally or informally, or being managed. Kind of what are some of the key takeaways you learned about like how necessary great management is to grow and develop as an employee, but also as a leader?
I can start. So I would say I've had a few different managers over my time. I haven't managed anyone yet, but it makes a huge difference when you can have the support of a manager. A big thing is just the open line of communication has been a huge difference I've seen from one to the other that made a huge difference in my mind of what added to my success. So being able to have like an open dialogue, to feel comfortable bringing up issues, to feel comfortable that they're giving great feedback is a huge thing, because every year our company, we have our goals and new reviews and everything like that. And when you can get the honest feedback, it helps you feel like you're growing and working towards something more. So just the more communication you can have, the better from my perspective.
Introduce yourself and what school you're in.
My name is Cassandra Robeson. I am majoring in interaction design and art, media, and design, undergraduate. My question is, I started school significantly later than a lot of my peers. However, I've constructed numerous venture ideas that I believe have potential. So my question is for everybody, but mostly the entrepreneurs. So did you have more than one venture idea? Or did you have a whole bunch? Did you go with your first one? Like, how did you decide which one to invest your time and money into?
the cheaper option. No, but literally. So when I went into entrepreneurship, I was just kind of in a place in my career where I was stuck. I was working in fashion at the time, and Boston has a very small network for that. So it's like if you don't work for Stride Rite, Reebok, or New Balance, like you're going to New York or California. And so my mom and dad are both entrepreneurs with very little education. My dad is actually illiterate. And I just kind of used them, to influence me to push through and do something different. I wasn't ready to move yet, so I figured I'm just going to kind of make this work by literally making work for myself. And when I decided that I wanted to open a food truck, I originally wanted to do a clean juicing truck. And again, it was all about the Excel spreadsheets. I just kind of, started plugging everything in there, saying, what are the startup costs? So literally, what does a refrigerator cost? What does a juicer cost? And it was exponentially more expensive to start a juice truck than it was to start a macaron truck. And also looking at those numbers, it was way more profitable to start a macaron truck. And so I kind of went with that. So if you have the ideas, I always write things down. No matter how minute the idea is. That way, when you go back and you're trying to monetize things and figure out how much they cost, you can think, well, one of my ideas was XYZ, and that's going to cost, such amount of money. And that way you can really figure out what's the best thing to move forward with. Because when I started Cameo Macaron, I literally started it with no money at the time. I started with social media, and that's how we got a large following, and that's how we sold out when we first opened the truck. So literally go with the cheapest idea. And I mean, if there are ideas that that you feel strongly about, any one of them is going to be a winner, but obviously cheap is great.
Hi, I'm Cassidy Stewart, and I'll be graduating in May with an industrial engineering degree. I'd just like to know some of the challenges that you guys face being women in the workplace.
Oh, come on. You gotta give the mic. You gotta give the mic to the engineer. No, it hasn't been that bad, except I'll tell you the very quick anecdotal story about when I first got hired at EMC, and I'm rushing it to make it quick. The oldest guy in the all-male group that I was interviewing into closed out the interview by saying, well, I'm a little concerned because, we use some profane language here and things might not be appropriate for a woman. I said, I guess I'll have to clean up my language. And I'm pretty sure that's how I got the job. So it has challenges, but we're so in tune to being unique that I don't see it as much of a hurdle as maybe some other people have thought in the past. And Northeastern does a great job of preparing you for it, I think.
Hi, my name is Margaret Harvey. I'm starting the part-time MBA program in May. I know we're not supposed to make comments, but the bread burger place is amazing. I love it. But Katie, you touched a little bit on my question earlier. Since I graduated and I started working, I have been promoted in the last 4 years. 3 times in the last 4 years. And I recently transitioned to a new role in tech, and so I'm trying to be really good at that. My question is, as I start this program, I was able to make a reputation for myself at work, but my reputation with my friends and family kind of declined because they think that all I care about is work. So can someone talk a little bit about how do you manage some of that, whether it's just say yes to everything and go out with everyone, or if you want to work, just work and do your thing?
Yeah, I have the same feedback from some of my family members. So I would say you do have to kind of really add or put the extra effort in at times. But honestly, sometimes you just have to kind of be selfish. And when there are opportunities at work to take advantage, but definitely think about the repercussions of working too hard. If it is starting to suffer, do put in the extra effort to see your family and friends. Most of my family's back in Connecticut, so it's like not even easy to go visit them quickly. But now I definitely found the time to do it. But a few years ago, I definitely heard a lot from them. But at the same time, it helped me to get promotion. So don't be afraid to be selfish, but don't go too crazy.
Yelena?
Hi. My name is Helen Steinberg. I'm a Northeastern alum, class of 2015. And my question also has to do with being female in the workplace. Now, if a man is confident and assertive, it's seen as a good leadership quality. And if a woman is like that, it's seen as
a negative leadership quality. So in your experiences, how have you worked on mitigating that?
I would disagree just slightly. It's all about how you approach things, but you can be strong and voice your opinion and ask questions and make comments and be a leader while being polite and gracious and very womanly. So that's how I try to do it.
Hi, my name is Hannah Gorlick. I'm an undergrad at Northeastern studying BSIB, and I was wondering if any of you have ever been in a situation where you've had to stand up for yourself and negotiate maybe a raise, maybe a promotion, or even just say no to a superior, and how you navigated that.
I have a really good story about this, and it's more so about standing up for myself. So our truck sometimes travels, and we do food truck festivals. We were doing a food truck festival. I'm trying to rush to tell the story, but it's so juicy. We're doing a food truck. We're doing a food truck festival in the Cape. There's this like really popular Boston chef who owns 3 different restaurants here that I love and go to all the time. And he was being featured there. It was sponsored by Hood, so he was doing all of these demonstrations throughout the food truck festival where he was using Hood creams to make all of these amazing recipes. And he was also a French chef. So at one point, he came over to my food truck, and our food truck is kind of dead at food truck festivals for the first couple of hours because people usually get real food and then they eat dessert afterwards. So it was at the point where literally there was a line wrapped around the kind of the perimeter of the festival with people waiting in line to get macarons, and he just kind of like skipped the line and like came up front to the truck, and I'm like, oh great, like the chef is, French chef is here to say hi to the girl at the French truck. And so he goes, well, how did you get the name, for your food truck? And it's like, oh my goodness, this is a really involved question for like 200 people, that I have to serve like in the next hour. And so I said, well, and I told him the story about, the beautiful little jewelry store in Paris that, inspired the name Cameo Macaron, whatever. And so I said, well, that's where I got Cameo from, and then we sell macarons, so you kind of put those two things together. And then he goes, oh, well, you spelled macaron wrong. And I'm like, okay, well, no, I didn't. But, that's a cool observation and an opportunity for a lesson. So then I said, hey, everyone, and literally told everyone who was in the line waiting for the truck to kind of gather around so that I could explain to people the difference between macaron and macaroon. And very surprisingly, he insisted that I spelled the name of the truck wrong. And he said, well, I'm French, and, this is how we spell it. And I said, well, I lived in Paris, and this is how they spell it there. So I don't know, maybe we, maybe we should hit up Google really quickly. But and he just really kind of stuck to it, and it got to a point where I just had to tell him, you know what, walk away. This isn't a positive exchange. You're wrong, and it's okay to be wrong sometimes. But it's really okay to be wrong sometimes, and it's one of those things where I could tell, I could get if maybe he was embarrassed and he figured it out and he just kind of held his position and then walked away, but he literally never walked away. So then I waited, and I was really upset, and so I'm literally fuming because at this point it's like, well, what is this guy's point? What if I did spell it wrong? You're now embarrassing me in front of all of these people and telling me like, hey, stupid girl, you spent all of this money and invested into a truck and all of these marketing materials, and your business is spelled wrong on everything. So being petty, I got home and I tweeted to him this cute illustration that I found, and it was like, what a macaron is, what a macaron is not. And it explained the difference between the two. And one of my friends at Eater Boston, who's an editor there, I catered his wedding, and he knows that I'm really sassy and that I just don't have time for any foolishness. And so he retweeted it to thousands and thousands of followers. And then the chef ended up seeing that and then apologizing. And it was just one of those moments where I could tell he knew he was wrong that entire time, but it really kind of took me sticking to my guns and saying, you made me uncomfortable. I'm going to make you cringe for the rest of your life every time that you think about this moment. So it's just kind of sticking to your guns. And when you're right, and don't let anyone let you think otherwise.
I think we all know how to spell macaron now. Well, thank you all. But perhaps you who have remaining questions can talk with the panel members after the session here. And I'm going to turn over the podium here to Kate Carlton, or we have another person here, but I'd just like to extend my thanks to all of you for the wonderful engagement that you provided for us tonight. So thank you.